Welcome to MLB tonight. Say hello to Mike Lowe and Carlos Pena. I'm Fran Charles. I think Mad Dog has said it best.
Nothing like
Correa back to Minnesota. That's it. You
Nothing
gotta
like
love,
hearing Mad Dog.
You gotta love the Mad Dog. So let's go crazy. Let's get nuts. Minnesota, Carlos Correa. I mean, he flirted with the Giants and the Mets, but Mike, he's staying home.
What a roller coaster. I mean, Twins fans should be ecstatic. First of all, I just feel bad. Maybe there's some Giants fans who are making Correa jerseys, and now Mets fans are making Correa jerseys. Going back to Minnesota, wow, we got a lot to dissect, Carlos. This is kind of a whirlwind of stuff going around. A franchise-type player, for sure.
No doubt about it. Just an absolute baller, gamer. And now going back to Minnesota, props to Minnesota for making it work and being creative. Yes, we do have a lot to dive into, and I can't wait to do so.
Yeah, give the Minnesota Twins a lot of credit because they were in on the initial talks, but the 10 years, $285 million wasn't enough. But they kept at it, and they kept tweaking and kept working. And here they came up with a creative deal that ended up working, and it sent a message, I think, not only to the fan base, but also to all Major League Baseball. And I think it's good. I think it's good that a middle market team landed a big fish.
Yeah, it seemed like, all the splash was West Coast or East Coast, and I think the Twins, they kept wanting to inquire, and they keep us in the loop. We want to see what's going on, and they were creative. You look at that deal, and it is front-loaded to a certain degree the first 6 years, which other teams apparently were not willing to do. So, a lot of credit has to go to the organization saying, hey, we understand the medicals, but we understand the player and the individual even more, and this makes sense for us.
All right, let's go ahead, Carlos, real quick.
Well, no, just saying like the leg was a problem, a long time ago. But last year, he played through very healthy. He only had one occasion where he was limping a little bit, but then he stayed in the game and he did not miss any time. So I'm like, are they making too much of this? The Twins know the player that they have, and they were comfortable with his health situation. So Correa back in Minnesota, I think it's great for baseball and great for Minnesota. Absolutely, just a better team. Now we can say they're contenders in that American League Central for sure.
Yeah, played 136 games, hit 292 and 22 home runs. All right, for much more on Carlos Correa heading to Minnesota, let's welcome in MLB Network insider John Heyman, who's extremely busy this time of year. John, you were all over this. How did this deal get done? And give us some more of the particulars, kind of the nitty-gritty on the second half of the deal.
Well, the Mets spent more than 2 weeks trying to work it out, trying to bridge the gap, trying to mitigate their risk in the situation. They saw whatever the Giants saw on the MRI. Now, I mean, Carlos Correa has had no symptoms. He's not missed any time with the ankle, and yet two doctors saw something there. So the Mets were worried about their risk, and ultimately they basically cut the guarantee in half from $315 million to $157.5 million over the 6 years. And he got $42.5 million more from a mid-market team instead of the big market team guaranteed. So can't blame Carlos Correa. Great day for the Twins, who hung around and made it work. And a sad day with the Mets. I know some Mets people were telling me they're not happy. They think the Braves and the Phillies are happy today, and when the Braves and the Phillies are happy, they're not happy. So it's a rough day in Queens, but they still have a pretty good team.
All right, so take us through the years potentially 7 through 10 and kind of the vesting options, because there's a lot of talk about that, but I know you're all over that. Kind of explain what that would look like for Carlos Correa and potentially the Twins.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Twins made this deal with that 6 guaranteed years at $33.33 million, $200 million, which was, again, $42 million more than the Mets were offering. But certainly they had the 4 vests, which are makeable based on plate appearances, 575 plate appearances in that first year, and $25 million, then descending down to $20 million, $15 million, and $10 million. So it is, as Mike said, a front-loaded deal. Potential $270 million, but $200 million guaranteed over 6, which is pretty big because that per year salary at 33.5 is a lot more than even that Mets deal had with the $315 million deal. At 12 years, the per year salary was more like $25 million. So he did get more money per year in this deal.
All right, let me ask you now about the Twins in terms of what this means for their plans going forward. Last year we saw, John, they were big players in the free agent market. Now that they've landed Carlos Correa to a long-term deal, what do you think is their next move or some of the next moves they might be thinking about?
Well, I mean, I think everybody liked to bolster the pitching at this point, and there's still a couple of guys out there, not a ton. The Marlins are one team with pitchers to trade after signing Johnny Cueto, so perhaps they can look there. But I think the Twins in that division right now, they're clearly a contender. We thought so last year going in, and they ended up disappointing. And the Cleveland Guardians just took off at the end and ended up winning by quite a bit, going away. But I do feel like the Twins, on paper at least, look like a contender in that division.
All right, tremendous stuff from John Heyman, who's always all over it. Let's bring it back inside Studio 3 with Carlos and Mike. And Buck Daddy 103, Byron Buxton, he's fired up. Hard to hold that in from everybody, but I did. LFG, my brother. And you guys know what LFG means. You don't need me to actually spell it out here. But, yeah, Buxton is excited. And then, Mike, that clubhouse has got to be fired up, as John touched upon.
I think teammates have to be fired up. The fan base has to be fired up. And listen, all teams that were in this, let's talk specifically Giants, Mets, and Twins, okay, they all want to mitigate their risk against a contract. I think where you got to give the Twins and Scott Boras a lot of credit is the Twins actually mitigated their risk, because the fear, I think, for most people were years 7 through 12, yep, 7 through 10. How is Carlos Correa going to look 7 years down the road? Not that he's not fantastic, but most guys are in a downward decline after you're
life.
35.
Yeah.
So that is truly what happens. So I think the creativeness of saying we're very confident in this guy short term, let's call it the first 6 years, we'll AAV you through the roof. Hey, you got to understand that we'll give you vesting options years 7 through 10, but you got to give us something for me to give you something. And I think they were able to kind of find the bond, and that marriage worked with Correa and the Twins. And it's kind of cool to see it once again, that a mid-market team that had a guy that played for him for a year, the guy opts out, because that's the other thing. When you usually opt out, most guys that want to sign back a la Clayton Kershaw, it's kind of understood because there hasn't been a lot of rumblings. But a guy that opts out and is looking at potentially 12 years, you kind of eliminate that small market team. Right. So I think this is a huge win for the Twins. I think that division is gettable. And obviously health with him and Byron Buxton, they got to be on the field. Those guys have to be on the field, but talent's there.
Yeah, no doubt. And look what happened last year. Of course, it was a disappointing season for the Twins, but now having Correa back certainly helps their cause. And then if you look around the pieces that the Twins have added, I know why Byron Buxton is extremely excited, because he believes wholeheartedly that this is a division that the Twins can go ahead and take. And look, no one's running away with it in the American League Central. But now you put Correa back in that lineup. Christian Vasquez, just piloting the rotation and getting the best out of the pitchers. And who's to say that Joey Gallo's shift no longer is going to be a factor? Going to get a lot more hits in that hole there to right field. And he has a bounce-back season. This could be a ball club that right now, when we look at it on paper, are they the favorites in the Central? I know the White Sox are there as well. But, man, these guys are looking really good on paper.
Yeah, I mean, look, Carlos Correa now in the fold, the 6 for 200, that's $33.3 million for those 6 years. By the way, if the vesting option situation doesn't work out for years 7, 8, 9, 10, he'd be free agent again. He's only 28. He can get another bite at the apple. But then you've got Christian Vasquez as your catcher. You've got Polanco, Correa, your middle infielders. You've got Byron Buxton, who they signed on a team-friendly deal, but also a deal that made sense for Buxton. It was 7 years and, kind of $140-ish or $1 million. Yeah, one more time, Elijah. All right, 7 for $100 million with bonuses. So that's most people will say Byron Buxton's worth far more money than that, but because of the injury situation, Buxton took the guaranteed money. So the Twins they've been very smart. Now, if they can get this guy, it's got to be on the field, Mike, for like 135, 140 games.
And he's such an exciting talent that I think everyone wants to see him on the field. I know he does. And you don't want him to play a different way just to put games played. What makes him so exciting is that he does cover so much ground in center field. He does have the ability to hit triples and steal bases and go deep. So this is a guy that when you see him play day in, day out, you're like, man, we really need him healthy. And I appreciate the fact that he understood I haven't been healthy. I'll take the guaranteed years. And I think this play here, everyone's talking about the ankle. I think everyone might have been banged up with the steal like this. Right, he slides into the guy's spikes. And, I'm not downplaying what Giants and Mets doctors saw, because there's obviously something that both teams saw that was a big red flag. I just think that the Twins say, hey, I know what we had for a whole year, how this guy went about his business, and he's worth it to us to make a big promise or a big guarantee for him for 6 years.
Yeah, I give him a lot of confidence. You know, the doctors, the staff over there know what Correa is made of and the way he goes about his business, but they know his health situation, you know, pretty much like the palm of their hand. So that gave him confidence to go ahead and do it. And let's go back to Buxton for a second, because we were talking about him staying healthy.
Yep.
You know, I'm going to go out and tell you that this guy is the best player in baseball when he's healthy, period.
Wow.
I mean,
Hot take from Carlos
it's
Correa,
unbelievable.
Tuesday, January 10th.
If you sit there and you watch Byron
Carlos
Buxton
Pages,
play ball, it's out of control. And from an athlete watching another, I'm just floored when I see Buxton go out there. Of course, he had to stay healthy. So this Twins ball club, man, when you have Correa and Buxton, and then you add the other pieces, could be a surprise in baseball, if we could call it that, because we know that they're extremely talented. But the additions there could be more of a factor than we are possibly thinking.
Yeah, and we've said it every year. I mean, since we've seen Byron Buxton, the Twins are well aware too. I mean, we're not telling them anything they don't know. And I'm sure they are trying to find the right formula, whether it's, you know, mix him in a DH a little bit more. It's hard to tell a guy like that to pull off the throttle, because that's what makes him the great player he is. But bottom line, they have to find a way, and they're on to that, and they know that.
Sure, and to compete, you know, because I've always looked at, if you look at a guy and you say, well, we'll just play him 100, 110. Someone vastly inferior is playing 50, 60 games. So now your team takes a hit. So where that, you know, happy spot is, that sweet spot for games played with Byron Buxton, I don't know what it is. I just know that it's good for baseball to see those two guys in a Twins uniform taking the field as often as possible.
Yeah, the memo to Byron Buxton, get on the line with Bryce Harper and see how Harper was able to kind of figure out a way to make sure he stays on the field as much as possible. Shout out to Elijah Research, who helped me get the Buxton math right. All right, going to take a break here on MLB Tonight. All right.